turn 1, a very unexpected points finish, and our team orders back in Formula 1. This is the Spanish Grand Prix race review.
Just me and my guitar.
The race on Sunday was a very interesting one. Right from lap 1 up to lap 66, there was a really good battle going on in the front, which kept us very interested throughout the race. This is the quick finishing order of the race. First, the race has been won by Lewis Hamilton in his Mercedes, closing the gap to Sebastian Vettel in the World Championships. Second was Sebastian Vettel, his championship rival. Third was Daniel Ricciardo, a welcome back to Red Bull onto the podium. Fourth and fifth were the Force Indias of Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon. With this, they go way past the midfield. Now they are firmly in grasp of the fourth Constructors' Championship. So sixth was Nico Hülkenberg, ever consistent. Seventh was Carlos Sainz. Eighth, Pascal Wehrlein in his Sauber, and Sauber scoring their first World Championship points this weekend. Ninth was Daniel Kvyat in the other Toro Rosso, and the final points position going to the Haas of Romain Grosjean. Let us look after the points. Now in P11 it was Marcus Ericsson in the second Sauber, so overall a very strong weekend for Sauber. And P12 was Fernando Alonso after a heroic drive in the qualifying. P13 was Felipe Massa, and that was the first of the Williams. This is not what we see from Williams in every weekend, but this was a very unusual weekend for them, and not a good one at all. P14 was this other Haas of Kevin Magnussen. He suffered a puncture later in the race which caused his downfall. P15 was Jolyon Palmer, and P16 the final classification, that was Lance Stroll. So let us look at the retirements. On lap 1 there were two retirements that happened, and it was a collision between Kimi Raikkonen of the Ferrari team and Max Verstappen. So both of them collided at turn 1. I think there was a little bit of a collision with Bottas as well, which initiated the collision between these two. So both of them retired with a suspension failure. Then lap 32, it was Stoffel Vandoorne who retired after a collision with Felipe Massa at turn 1 itself again. So he could not see Felipe Massa coming down his inside, and he just went into him. That is the reason he gets a 3-place penalty, 3-place grid drop at Monaco next race weekend. Now looking at lap 38, a very significant retirement, that is Valtteri Bottas with an engine failure, and Mercedes not bulletproof apparently. So these were the retirements and the classifications. Let us look at the highlights now.
Give them prayer hands, say what's up America, half of you should know me, right?
The race start was very eventful. Lewis Hamilton from pole, and it was his rival Sebastian Vettel on second position. Apparently Ferrari got a new clutch system which is based off of Mercedes' clutch system. So the start procedure was quite similar, but then during the second phase of the start it was Sebastian Vettel who edged Lewis Hamilton down to turn 1, and he took the lead. Behind him though there was a bit of a crisis going on, because Valtteri Bottas, he actually braked a little early when compared to all the cars which would have done so. So because of that, Kimi Raikkonen went towards his outside, and even on his outside they had Max Verstappen. So while Valtteri Bottas was going through turn 1, he clipped the rear end of Kimi Raikkonen's car, and he actually had to turn into Max Verstappen who was on his outside. So both the cars had to retire with a suspension failure. That was the story about the crash at turn 1. Trying to avoid this crash, Felipe Massa, he tried to go around the outside of these two, but then there was Fernando Alonso, and he had a collision with Fernando Alonso, I think his front wing end plate flew away, and that was a front wing damage for him. And because of that, Fernando Alonso went for an excursion through the gravel at turn 2, and had to come back onto the racetrack. So he lost a lot of positions because of this. Due to this front wing failure, Felipe Massa had to pit on lap 1, and from there on it was only catch up what Williams could have done. Now talking about the other race cars who pitted on lap 1, it was I think Daniel Kvyat and Jolyon Palmer. Both of them, they were on the medium tires. They started on the medium tires hoping for a safety car, and they got rid of the medium tires on lap 1. They did not get a safety car, but then they got rid of the slowest tire available. Vettel in the lead, he tried to create a bit of a gap. I think it was about 4 seconds to Lewis Hamilton, and behind him Valtteri Bottas could not keep up with his teammates, so Valtteri Bottas was running quite lonely in a third position, and behind him there was another loner, Daniel Ricciardo, fourth position for him. So Sebastian Vettel, after gaining a substantial lead of about 4 seconds, he comes into the pits for another set of soft tires. That was suggested to be the winning strategy. So he comes into the pits for soft tires and goes out, and while coming out on his out lap, he gets stuck behind Daniel Ricciardo. That's where he loses a bit of time to Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton actually continued through for another 6 laps. Actually, the Mercedes engineers, they tried to mirror the strategy, the Ferrari's winning strategy that they have had a few race weekends ago. They came in about 6 laps later, about on lap 22, and by this time Vettel was trying to go past the lap traffic, and he reached Bottas. After reaching Bottas, it was a very difficult task for him to go past him, because Bottas was driving very intelligently and very good defensive driving as suggested by his Mercedes team. So helping out his teammate by making Sebastian Vettel losing lots of time on his soft run, which could have been a race winning stint for him. Now what happened was Lewis Hamilton, he came out on the medium tires. He went on to the slower tire, but he still was going faster than Sebastian Vettel thanks to Valtteri Bottas. So losing quite loads of time in the middle stint, Sebastian Vettel. Now on lap 32, Stoffel Vandoorne had a collision with Felipe Massa, with Stoffel Vandoorne retiring on turn 1, and because of that collision, Felipe Massa had got a puncture, and he had come into the pits for another time, so another bad collision for him, another bad pit stop, and there was no chance of points for Williams now. Because of that crash, there was a virtual safety car that was deployed, and during this virtual safety car, Mercedes took the advantage and they got rid of the medium tire, the slower tire of the two, and they got him onto the brand new soft tires which he went out on. But Ferrari could not react to this quick basis, and it was a few laps until Sebastian Vettel came into the pits for his medium stint. By that time, Lewis Hamilton had been punching through the lap times, and he was going pretty fast. And by the time Lewis Hamilton came through the main straight and Sebastian Vettel was coming out of the pits, both of them were side by side as they were going on to turn 1. Sebastian Vettel tried to push Lewis Hamilton off the track and regained the lead, but obviously Sebastian Vettel, being on the medium tire, the slower of the two tires, could not retain the lead for long, and he got overtaken by Lewis Hamilton on lap 44, and from that lap on, Lewis Hamilton was controlling the race because it was very difficult for Sebastian Vettel on the slower tire to overtake Lewis Hamilton in the faster car on a faster tire. So very good strategy played by Mercedes in this race. On lap 38, Valtteri Bottas was going on merrily along with his race, and he was going to get a third position for sure. He was going to go on the podium, but then he suffered engine failure, which led to his retirement and a default third, which was inherited by Daniel Ricciardo of the Red Bull. So Red Bull finally getting a podium, and it was 72 seconds gap between Lewis Hamilton, the race winner, and Daniel Ricciardo. So I think the first 3 cars were only the cars that were classified on the lead lap. 4th onwards, everyone were lapped. That is how much the advantage for Ferrari and Mercedes, that they have the advantage onto the other teams in the field. The Drivers' Championship now looks like this. Lewis Hamilton closing the gap to Vettel. Now the gap is 6 points only. So very spicy the things over here. And in the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes actually extend their lead by about 7 points due to double retirement, that is one from Ferrari and one from Mercedes. So the effective gap that they have increased is 7 points between first and second. Now let us look forward to the next race, that is the Monaco Grand Prix, the most iconic race in the Formula 1 calendar. See you later.